Pranakasha live stream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we're talking with Brad Look, an amazing makeup artist in the industry, and all kinds of different shows. We're going to get into it really quick. Today is special because this is my very first podcast where I'm doing it as part of warpfactortrek.com. So Warp Factor Trek is sponsoring this interview and put Brad and me together. And then what I'm going to do is, based on all the things we talk about, I'm going to write a little article and publish that over on warpfactortrek.com. And I'll put the link in the description right down there. All right. Well, I looked you up, of course, and I found a little bio here on the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, which says, Brad Look, the Emmy-winning makeup artist for Star Trek Voyager's Threshold, has 9 other Emmy nominations to his credit. He was also nominated for the Hollywood Makeup Guild Awards. Born in Peoria, Illinois, Brad now lives in Southern California, where he works in the entertainment industry. Besides being a journeyman with the Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Union, Local 706, Brad has taught classes at UCLA and other national universities, as well as internationally on film and television makeup. He holds a master's degree in makeup from the College Conservatory of Music. Now that's interesting. Yep. I'm a musician, so I'm like, why? He went to music school to learn makeup? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, and Brad has been listed in Who's Who's in Entertainment and has worked on productions such as Pirates of the Caribbean 3, The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, a lot of clauses, Poseidon, Boston Legal, Crossing Jordan, Scrubs, Flintstones, Viva Rock Vegas, A Woman Named Jackie, Deep Space Nine, Congo, Voyager, Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Interaction, Star Trek Undiscovered Country, and Enterprise, to name just a few. Brad has also written numerous articles on makeup, including co-writing the book Star Trek Aliens and Artifacts. Okay, so I want to jump right into Boston Legal. So you were the one who that hairpiece you did for William Shatner is amazing. I can't even tell that it's there. How did you do that, man?
I did not do a hairpiece for Mr. Shatner. I was actually asked on that show. They had a character who was supposed to be dying from basically liver failure.
Okay.
And has a very intricate scene with Mr. Shatner in that sequence.
Okay.
And so the woman had hair down to basically her butt, and we had to conceal all her hair under a ball cap, and then a very thin chemo wig went over top of that. Okay. So the concept was is that she is dying from liver failure. She's in a bed in a hospital room when Mr. Shatner comes in and talks to her. So because she was dying from liver failure, I made her look kind of jaundiced.
Okay.
I gave her appliances to make her eyes look like they were more sunken. And then I even gave her, went so far as to give her bed sores and things like that.
Is this the picture of her? Is that that's like right below this?
I don't know. You'd have to show it to me.
Jaundiced girl for season of Boston Legal. Yeah, that's her. Okay. So we could actually potentially show that picture. Yeah, she does look pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I even have a photograph of her with Mr. Shatner. So, I mean, he even posed with her because he goes, oh my God, he says, this is really disgusting. But that's what they wanted. Wow.
Okay.
Very interesting. A very talented hairdresser who was able to flatten her hair down so I could get the wig, the ball cap on, so that when the wig went on, it all looked very seamless. So a talented hairdresser that did all of that for me.
Well, speaking of William Shatner and Captain Kirk, in his later years, did he still wear a hairpiece, or did he just have some really expensive hair implants or something like that?
I honestly don't know. I mean, with a man of his money, though, he could have either one. But he looks great for his age.
Oh,
he
really
does.
Jeez,
I
not
mean,
only does it look great, he's in great mental shape too. He's 92.
right, he's what, like 91 now?
I think he just had a birthday. So I think
Right,
he's now 92.
92. Well, like I said,
Yeah.
he looks remarkable. I
Yeah.
wish I looked that good when I was his age. And
Yeah. I know he's really
I'm only in
into,
my 60s.
I know he's like into horseback riding and stuff. So I don't know if he's still
Yes.
doing that or not, or who
Well, he goes
knows?
to the equestrian center here in Burbank.
Oh,
So that's where he usually rides. So
so
it's
you've seen
probably,
him ride recently?
I know people who have.
Oh, wow. So he's still that active. That's amazing.
Yes, yes. I mean, he's an active guy. I know he
Yeah.
likes to drive motorcycles and other things too. So, I mean, he keeps out, he's out there doing stuff. Well, he also
Yeah.
went up into space too.
Yeah. That's for
So,
sure.
I mean, how many actors do we know that have done that?
Not many. Wow. Okay, so my starting question is, how in the heck did you get into makeup in the first place?
Well, as you mentioned, I grew up in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on a farm. My parents still live there.
Dairy farm?
And on the farm, yes, they do. It's in central Illinois, outside of Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
And I had an interest in makeup because of watching shows like Star Trek.
Okay.
Star Trek and Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and all these different shows. I didn't know it at the time that when I was watching all these shows, I was primarily seeing the work of one makeup artist, which was John Chambers.
Hmm.
Mr. Chambers got the first actual regular, well, not, excuse me, he got the secondary award for makeup right behind or before. Let me back that up. This is really getting complicated. Let me try to explain this again, then you can
Yeah.
edit all this. Mr. Chambers was born in or worked in Chicago, Illinois. I was
Okay.
from Illinois.
Okay.
He got the award for Planet of the Apes, which was the second
Ah.
film to be given the award, which was an honorary award. The first one went to Mr. William Tuttle for The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao.
Okay.
This was the second award. And it wasn't until years later that the Academy made it a regular feature as far as an award, with Rick Baker winning it for American Werewolf in London.
Oh, okay.
So that was the kind of the connection between all those. Growing up on the farm, watching Star Trek, seeing Mr. Spock's ears and all
Mm-hmm.
that, got me interested in makeup. I ended up doing a lot of makeup for local theater productions,
Okay.
in high school and all that. And then later on, I ended up working for a company called the Krylon Makeup Corporation, which is still located in San Francisco. They were on Polk Street. Now they're on, I believe, on 9th Street.
Okay.
And I ended up designing makeup for them. So with all of that, I also ended up getting a master's degree in makeup from the College Conservatory of Music in Cincinnati, Ohio, which a lot of people say, why a music school?
Yeah, of course. That's
The
what I said
reason for
too.
that is they do primarily a lot of opera, musical
Oh,
theater,
okay.
and so the person that was in charge at the school, her name is Lena Kaleva, or was Lena Kaleva. She's now retired. I ended up contacting them after receiving a brochure about the school,
Okay.
and called up and ended up talking to the dean of the school, which I did not know at the time. And we got to talking, and I finally said, what would it be worth to you for me to come to your school? And he says, well, give me your background. And I started rattling off all these different things I worked on. And he says, well, he says, if your credentials are what you say they are, he says, we'll pay you to come to our school.
Oh, you had a scholarship.
So I had a full scholarship. I also helped to teach classes and
Oh,
also regularly worked on all the shows. And it was basically 7 days a week. So
okay.
was always working on getting productions done, getting things ready, building things that needed to be built, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's how I got into all of this.
Okay. Though, I would assume that makeup for stage is way different than for TV and movies, right?
You would think so, but when I was going to school at CCM,
Mm-hmm.
the instructor, Lena Kaleva, who I had mentioned, she
Mm-hmm.
was a film makeup artist from Russia.
Okay.
So all our makeups were done basically to film standards,
Okay.
not stage standards.
But when you do it on stage, don't you have to exaggerate everything to get it to be seen from the audience?
You do, and we just so you know, we also had a representative from NBC that came in, Lee Bagan,
Okay.
and he came to our school, and we were showing him all our work. And my professor says, what we've done is we do the makeups to look the best for the closest people who are seeing it. She says, for those who are way back, they can, have opera glasses or whatever they want. And Lee says, well, yes. He says, in fact, he says he's worked on productions in New York, and they do the same thing. Those are
Okay.
the most expensive seats, are the ones closest to the stage.
Okay.
So they try to keep the makeup looking as good as they can up close.
Mm-hmm.
And as you have seen, I mean, they televise a lot of stage shows now, and those makeups
Yeah.
are again designed to look really good, not for just the close up of the audience, but also for the cameras now, because it's now become big business for them.
Yeah. So like you can go, I don't know if they're still doing it, but where I live, they used to have Saturday morning things where you could go and you could watch operas on the big
Right, like
screen.
Fandango. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and the beautiful sets, fantastic makeup, of course, great music.
Oh yeah,
Um,
but that's all
fantastic.
really big business now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
so most opera companies, they are now designing their makeup all the time to look that good because they're always being filmed.
Oh, okay.
Because I've seen a
So
lot of productions that have been filmed.
so then so you're now you must have a team. You can't just do the whole thing by yourself, right? When you're doing an opera.
It depends on the show. I mean, when I was doing makeup for at CCM, there was a group of us, and each of us were assigned to various performers to make sure they,
Uh-huh.
look good. You also had to do quick change behind, the curtains and stuff for when they had to go from one look to another look. And sometimes you're all in black, so you can even be off to the side. And I mean, I had one production we did of Evita, and I was changing over the lead actress, and I had to be on the back side of the set, and it
Hmm.
was on a turntable, so it was turning while I was doing the changeover.
Yeah, I've
And you
seen
had to
that.
time it out just perfect so that I could disappear in the back before it came completely around, and it had me on the set along
So
with
you were
her.
just like a passing shadow.
Right.
Wahaha. Interesting.
So so we had to do a complete wig change on her as well as costume, and I had to do some changes to her makeup.
Okay. And then
And it's all
like
happening with everyone doing it at the same time.
are you also the person responsible for the touch up during during the shoots, or do you have somebody else do that for you?
Well, if it's being filmed, I'm usually there, just like I am on a film set. I'm usually off to the side, retouching as necessary.
Okay.
So
And
I mean, again, it's not just you put it on, then you leave, or you don't do anything. You always have to constantly maintain makeups.
okay. So okay, here's another question. I have the DVD set of Star Trek the original series TOS, and
Hmm.
it looks great because they filmed it on film, and
Correct.
so the resolution is great. However, the problem is that they were never expecting it to look that good. So there's times when you can see like flaws in Spock's ears and other
Sure.
things that would have never shown up on a 1960s TV set.
Right.
So so that brings up an issue. So like nowadays, as the as this, I'm trying to say TV sets, but nobody, I mean not TV sets. People's flat screens get better and better, and the resolution gets better and better. Like, how does the makeup industry deal with that? Where now all the little flaws that you used to not have to worry about now show up.
Well, I mean, the first thing you try to do is you try to do the makeup as clean and as perfect as you can.
Okay.
But there is always, I mean, again, it is just makeup. It's not, you're not actually physically changing their features for permanent. So everything is temporary.
Mhm.
So if there's anything that you can't fix that becomes a major flaw that because of the actor or because whatever the circumstance is,
Uh-huh.
you'll sometimes have to go over and talk to like the DP, and they may try to shade it a little bit or throw a
Change the lighting.
diffuse, right, and
Yeah.
throw a diffusion filter on it. And sometimes you'll even have to go up and talk to the script supervisor and say, well, there's an issue here that we can't rectify in the amount of time that's given us right now without doing a major change to this makeup. And they will go in and make that notification on the script. So they may have to go in there and digitally clean up something if necessary.
Okay.
I mean, that has happened to us a couple of times, even when I was working on Star Trek, because of certain problems.
Right. I mean, so you're
again,
sitting there
it is
shooting
makeup.
and their nose is starting to melt off because of the lights. You're like,
It's not necessarily that. I mean, there was an instance where we were working on a show and we were shooting over on stage 16, and one of the other makeup artists, she was rather upset because her makeup was falling apart.
Okay.
And I said, well, there's so many issues. I said, how did you do the makeup? And she told me, and I said, well, it should be fine. And she said, well, would you mind going over there and talking to the actors, see maybe if something I've missed? I said, okay. And so I went over and I was talking to him, and he was over at the craft service table, which is this long table that's made, has coffee and other things on there. So you can, as they say, graze on it during shots or setups. And I was talking to him, and we just started a nice little conversation. And I finally says, hey, over the weekend, did you watch any of the sports things on TV? Oh, yeah. I said, oh, wow, what'd you watch? And he's telling me. And I said, hey, you must have had some beers and other stuff just to really. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, well, no, not beers. He goes, I'm not really a beer drinker. I drank a couple bottles of wine. And I went over to the makeup artist and I went, okay, here's your problem. He consumed a great deal of wine. This was on a weekend. We're shooting on a Monday. I said, and he's in heavy costuming and he's running around and he's sweating, and all that sweat is coming through as alcohol, and the alcohol is dissolving everything.
Interesting.
I said, there's your problem. And so a lot of times we have to tell actors, if you're going to be in a heavy prosthetic makeup, please do not drink over the weekend, because if you drink over the weekend, it will come through your pores and literally dissolve the makeup.
So what did you do? Did you just have to tell them to cancel that day of shooting?
No, the makeup artist had to do is just constantly go in there and repair the makeup as much as she could. I had that same problem on Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
John Kalikos was playing one of the Klingons that he was from the original show. Mm-hmm. And they brought him on to Deep Space to play one of the Klingon groups. And there's a number of Klingons that were in this scene. And they were sitting around a fire on stage. I think it was stage 5 that we were shooting that on.
Okay.
And I was the only makeup artist there to watch all these people. I don't remember how that happened, but it turned out that way. And John Kalikos was recalling some Klingon lore around the fireplace, or around the fire pit. And it was warm. He was in a heavy costume, as all Klingons usually are, had a full wig on, of course, prosthetics and all that. And he was also, because of he had a heart condition where he had to take nitro tablets.
Okay.
And the nitro was so strong, it was literally eating apart the whole makeup. And I mean, he had a Klingon mustache and goatee and everything. And I had to re-glue it every time between every one of the major shots, because it just would be dissolved because he's sweating. The nitro is coming through his pores and dissolving the glue. And I also had to repair his makeup because everything was being dissolved because of his heart condition.
Okay.
So again, you do what you can. But I was constantly repairing that makeup the entire time by myself, trying to get it all ready. And I mean, these are the problems of being a makeup artist. It's not just putting it on and, like I said, walking away. There's all kinds of upkeep that has to be done.
Yeah. Here's a technical question for you. How do you, when you have a mask, a rubberized mask that only covers part of their face, how do you cover the seams? How do you cover the transition between the rubber and their real skin?
Well, hopefully when the piece is made, it's made on what's referred to as a live cast of an actor.
Okay.
That's basically usually it's a plaster or stone reproduction of that actor's face.
Okay.
And what you do is you take that live cast and you sculpt on it. And if you're really attentive, you're trying to match any of the pores in their face into the appliance so that
Pores?
when you put the pores to the skin, the little holes in your skin
Oh,
that allow you
wow.
to sweat through them. So if you match to those pores and wrinkles as closely as you can, when you put the piece on, it looks like just an extension of their face.
So you don't have to do anything. It just,
No, well, what you'll have to do is glue that down as well as you can, and then try to, if you need a transition from their face into the from the appliance into their face,
uh-huh.
sometimes you can take something such as duo adhesive stipple sponge and just lightly dab it. And what it does, it creates a little bit of texture between the two, so that to the camera or to your eye, you don't see a texture jump.
Huh. When did
There's
they
all these
start
little
getting
tricks.
that good on makeup? Like, I mean, like one show that you didn't mention that came to mind was Outer Limits.
Hmm.
Like even back then, were they that good at it, or did this come later, this technique?
Well, as far as I mean, bridging the gap between one piece to the next,
Yeah, like
or
yeah.
as far as blending, I mean, let's face it, Outer Limits, just like the original Star Trek, they had tight budgets. They didn't have a whole lot of time to sculpt and make
Huh.
things. It was in most cases, I mean, you're looking at a very short turnaround. So sometimes the sculptures were not done as finessed as they can be done like they are today.
Okay.
So you do have some rough areas, and sometimes you have to do some trickery to hide things.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a whole lot easier now than it was then because again, because of budgets and time constraints.
Is the technology the same, or has that
It's
actually
advanced.
improved?
No, it's advanced too. I mean, you now have originally when appliances were made back in the day. Let's go back to like the day to a film called The Good Earth.
Uh-huh.
Jack Dawn, who was the department head over on the film, they made the Asian eyelids that were put on the actors out of gelatin.
Hmm.
So if it got too hot on the set, the gelatin eyelids would start melting. The same thing for like a nose bridge. You would
Okay.
have a nose bridge that would be put on. It's gelatin again back in the day, and if it got too hot, things start melting. So,
Speaking of melting, did you ever watch the Pink Panther? I think it was the Pink Panther Strikes Again.
oh yes,
When
yes, with the
when
nose,
Peter Sellers was dressed up as Einstein and he was doing the thing with the laughing gas and then his nose
right?
started melting and he was that whole gag.
Well, it's just like the same thing that happened with I Love Lucy when she set her nose on fire because she had a wax nose and it was on fire like a candle. You remember that scene? I think it was with
Yeah.
Hal Holden or Bill Holden, excuse me, Bill
Yeah.
Holden. And it was a hysterical scene, but because it was a wax nose, and hers was like mortician's wax, and then she has the cigarette and she sets it off on fire on the very tip of the nose because she's trying to disguise herself. I mean, it's great because of
Uh,
the fact that it was what it was, which was, something that was as easy to destroy as wax.
yeah.
So, and
Okay.
then okay, so then from that film going forward, the first film that's really credited as having foam appliances, which is mixing up a base of latex with components to cause it to foam up and to stabilize it, was a film called The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I remember that one.
Remember that little film?
Yeah, hold on here.
Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah. So for that film, George Bow and his team helped to make the molds and run the foam. And in most cases, the foam worked. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it was underbaked and didn't come out right. Sometimes if it was baked a little too long, it got a little too stiff, or it just wouldn't work. So I
Yeah.
mean, again, this was the era of the time when they were just experimenting with these new materials and trying to find what would work for The Wizard of
Right.
Oz. I
And
mean,
this was
again,
1939,
yes, the
folks.
year that everything happened as far
And
as
the
filming.
amazing thing about that movie is it was made in 1939. You can watch it today and it still holds up.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the visual effects for what they are, like the witch, the little miniature of the witch riding her,
Yeah, and the
surrender.
flying monkeys, they're still just, and the tornado is just as terrifying as it was when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that film in all its different versions that they've come out with, they have a 3D version of it, they have the 4K version of it. I mean, it will go on and on and on. I mean,
Yeah.
long past all of us. And hopefully that people will still enjoying it, from one century to the next.
Yeah.
They'll probably have it so it's holograms eventually, so you'll actually feel like you're in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll have an interactive, uh, holodeck that's the Wizard of Oz where you can actually take part in it.
Can you imagine? You can
That's
have that
so
on.
wild.
Wouldn't that have been funny to have something like that on Next Generation as the hologram deck?
Oh, yeah. They should have done a Wizard of Oz one. They did
Yeah.
Robin Hood.
Oh yeah, that was a
Yeah.
great one.
But yeah, Wizard of Oz, of course, well, I don't know. That's always copyright things, but what leads into, I'm sure you saw Trials and Tribulations, right?
Yes, I worked on it.
Oh, you did.
Yes, I
Very
did.
cool.
I did makeup on the author of the original Tribbles, David Gerald. I did his makeup on the show.
Oh, what part did he play?
He played, I think, an ensign.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's in a couple of
But
sequences where they have the
wait
real
a sec.
footage.
How can somebody that age be an ensign?
They colored his hair.
It made him young?
Made him, well, I tried to make him look as young as I could, and then they colored his hair, and he's just in some of the shots. So if you really know what you're looking for, you can see him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when I found out who he was, then he says, "Well, yeah, my name is David Gerald." I go, "You mean the writer of the original Tribbles episode?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Wow,
That's
that's pretty
cool.
cool."
Did you have to do people's makeup different in order for it to match the 60s style of makeup or?
What we did was for that particular show, of
Uh,
course, the costuming all had to match to the original.
right.
The sideburns, of course, were the pointed sideburns.
Hmm.
We
Yes,
tried
again.
to, right, yeah, and
These
we
are
tried
real
to,
though.
oh yeah, and we tried to duplicate everything as close as we could, and then of course, they were able to fudge some stuff,
Right,
with
just
the
by changing just photographic effects and stuff and changing the
right, yeah,
contrast and so on.
right. I mean, because what we usually had on Next Generation was a lot of gray sets, but the
Mm,
original show had a lot of splash of colors all over the
mm.
place because of the
And
fact
colored lights and
color
things.
television and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
we ended up doing the same thing when we had a two-part episode on Voyager, or excuse me, on Enterprise, where we had I think it was I want to say the Thorn Web. What, remember that episode
Tholian
where
web, yeah. Uh-huh.
Tholian, thank you.
Yeah.
Where we had that as part of our storyline along with the Mirror Mirror episode.
Oh,
So
cool. You know
we
what?
had
I
a
missed
combination
that.
of the two.
Oh,
Oh,
cool. I gotta go back and watch that.
yeah, it has a whole different beginning than the original Enterprise beginning, where it has that kind of folksy sound to it.
Yeah.
This had a whole new beginning that was new music that was written for it, new credits, everything. And it's
Oh,
very dramatic.
cool.
Yeah, if you haven't seen
Okay.
it, really watch it. It's very,
I love it when
very,
they do that. The other thing that they did um, in Star Trek Discovery season 2, when they went back and flashed back to original stuff from the cage. Did you watch that?
hmm
I thought that was really well done. The
I mean,
way
the
that,
cage
yeah.
is an interesting concept I have a copy of the script.
Oh,
When I was
cool.
working on my book, I was
Okay.
able to get a copy of the original script and was able to kind of go through the whole thing and read it so I could use it for reference for the Star Trek book. And it
Yeah.
was very interesting reading it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ahead of its time as far
Well,
as the
even
con.
now, if you watch it now, it's still I mean, I watched it when I first watched it. I was a kid, right? But now as an adult, when I go back and watch it, I'm like, whoa, there's some really deep concepts in this.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I mean, you think about it, it's like, and I'm reading, I'm going, this was back in the '60s when this was done, and it works even today
Yeah.
because
Well,
of
of
the
course, you
concepts.
remember when The Matrix came out, right? Everybody freaked out about that, but that's similar story to The Cage, actually. I mean, similar dealing with what's reality and what isn't type of
Right.
stuff. Um, okay, this here's another question. Do you happen to know Mark Zickery?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't say why.
He's a writer. He actually wrote the and got the credit for Far Beyond the Stars, which is a lot of people's favorite DS9 episode.
Hmm.
It's you know which one that is? It's the one where they go back and Cisco's like a sci-fi writer in the 50s
Yes, I do
and
remember
everybody's
that.
his staff on his on the, you know, and the cool thing of course is all the actors get to play completely different characters,
Right.
you know, and you see them as a totally different person. Yeah, anyways, he was the one who came up with the outline for that episode.
Well,
And
the neat thing about Deep Space Nine is they also had an episode, if you remember, where the Ferengis end up getting somehow, and I don't remember it because it's been so long since I've worked on any of these,
uh,
where they land on Earth and they think it's like the Roswell
oh
incident.
yeah, that one. I know
And
which one you're
the
talking about.
Ferengis are the considered the Greys in the
Yeah,
episode,
that was a
and that,
really good one.
oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you were in charge of Quark's makeup?
No, that was Karen Westerfield.
Okay.
She did him exclusively for all the years that he was on there. I helped out on some of the others characters. Sometimes I was asked to do Max's makeup,
Hmm.
who played his brother, and
Okay.
then there was Nog, of course, and all that kind of stuff. And then we had on Voyager. I'm trying to think because again, this has been a while. We had some Ferengis on there, and so we
Okay.
ended up having a whole group of Ferengis on the show, and we had let's see, who did we have? We had Clint Howard, who I did his makeup.
Okay.
We had, I've done his makeup twice on Star Trek shows, and then we had uh he just passed away. I don't think his name. He was a comedian. He died in a car crash. Uh, Leland. Hey, Clay. He's not listening to me.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sorry. I'm
How about
kind of.
Robert Beltran? Did you do his tattoo for Chakotay?
No, that was always Michael Westmore.
Oh, okay.
And Michael Westmore never used a stencil. Everyone asked, you know, did he do a stencil to create the tattoo every day? It's like, no. He would lightly sketch it on, and then he would hand ink the whole thing. The
Hmm.
same thing with the trill pattern
Oh, really?
that was on D Space Nine for here for Terry. That was all done freehand as well.
Oh, so if
He
you
had
go episode
no
by
stencil.
episode, you can probably see differences in the trail pattern, probably.
Right. He kept them in basically the same area
Uh-huh.
and basically trying to keep it similar. But the thing is, as he said, he goes, it's kind of organic. If you do a stencil, it makes it look like it's manufactured.
Right.
So this gives more of that organic aspect to it. We had an episode on Deep Space Nine. It was me and Tom Supranon, and we had what they call the Trill Boys, and we
Okay.
had to have these guys made up as Trill, and we had the things coming down here. But now they had their shirts off, and they were just wearing like swim trunks, and so we had
Okay.
to do the pattern all the way down, going all the
Okay.
way down to their legs,
Hmm.
doing the same idea of the Trill pattern. Which of
Very
course
good.
was a little bit time consuming to put it all on like that because again it was all hand done. Again, no stencils or anything.
All right. So you made a career out of making up other people. Now, have you ever done any cosplay yourself and made yourself up?
No, I haven't. I
Did
have
the thought
not.
ever cross your mind, or was that like,
I worked on a film that dealt with cosplay,
Okay.
and that was Role Models. I don't know if you remember that film.
I don't think I
That
ever saw it.
Yeah, it had Paul plays the Ant-Man. Paul, you know who I'm talking about? The Marvel film, the Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But do you remember what Paul's last name is? It's Paul whatever.
Um,
Anyway, Role Models was dealt with this whole idea of cosplay. And
okay.
so the whole film dealt with cosplay. And so what we did was, for all the characters starting off in the film, they're supposed to have these makeups, like they look like they put them on themselves. They're not done very well. Things aren't blended off. And
Okay.
during the course of the film, we were told to slowly make the makeup look better and better and better. So I had like a witch I had to do. I had some elves I had to do. I had some other characters, and we did that for the cosplay sequence. So just taking their makeup and saying, okay, originally they were supposed to have done it themselves, so we're gonna make it look like this. And then on Big Bang Theory, I had
Okay.
to make up someone over there, the East Indian actor that's on the show.
Hmm.
I had to make him up as a Klingon,
Oh, I saw
and
that episode where they
yeah,
went to Vasquez Rock and their
right.
makeup starts to fall apart as the show progresses.
Right.
Yeah.
So I put his makeup on. I
Okay.
tried to put it on so
Yeah.
that it looked like he had done it. So the edges weren't perfectly, pristine. His
Right.
facial hair pieces, I left it so you could really kind of see the lace. And I did all of that. And then during the course of them getting lost and
Right.
having someone steal their car, I started lifting up the edge and started making the mustache look like it's starting to flop a little bit and
Yeah.
starting to break down the makeup so it looks like he's starting to sweat it off and everything.
Yeah.
So again, that was kind of another cosplay kind of idea using Star Trek as a vehicle for that.
Okay, here's the question for you. Did they shoot that on location or did they do some green screens to do some of that?
It was all done with green screen.
Ah, okay. So it was on
And we
set. Okay.
Yeah, then what they did was they shot probably plates and stuff to work into the green screen.
Right.
We spent an entire day just doing that without the audience there, just to get everything we needed.
Right.
So, and then I showed them how to do the data makeup. And then later on in another, it was a situation comedy that also dealt with sci-fi and all that. I was asked to come on there and do the data makeup on an actor, and we gave him contacts that gave him yellow eyes and everything.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people thought once he was all made up, they were like, "Wow, that looks a lot like Data." And it's like, well, I did it exactly like Michael Westmore used to do on Brent Spiner.
That's cool. Interesting. Wow. Hmm. So, do you find like have you done any kind of makeup that's just um not supposed to look like a horror film or sci-fi? Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, I worked on a lot of things. Like a woman
Okay.
named Jackie was all beauty makeups.
Hmm.
I've worked on a number of shows where I'm just brought in. Like I worked on the first season of the Perry Mason show, and that was doing all just period makeups, and they were all just beauty makeups and stuff like that.
Uh,
Worked on Westworld season 1 and 2. I
okay.
did everything from beauty makeup to period makeups, making the people look like they were the robots.
Uh,
Some of the robots that were basically in cold storage, so they were all done in pale colors and blues and all of that. So
uh,
they looked like they were basically like almost like frozen figures.
okay.
Um, let's see, what else have I worked on? I mean, I've worked on so many things I forget sometimes.
Okay. And then
Worked on Pirates 2 and 3. So I
okay.
did hair pieces on those. We did pirate makeups. We did character makeups. We did frozen looks on some of the pirates when they're supposed to go over the edge and go into the abyss or whatever it is, where they're all supposed to be very cold. So we did makeups on them to make them look like they were all kind of cold and kind of frozen.
Now, did you get to do Johnny Depp?
No, Johnny was done by V. Neal.
Okay.
So, but I would see him on set, of course, when working with all the other pirates and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, and I was around all the stuff that we were shooting with the green screen. We had
Yeah, the makeup on pirates is amazing. Of course, some of
oh
it's CGI, like those those octopus men. That was all CGI, right?
yeah, for the most part, there was some like Davy Jones originally started with some stuff on his face, and then
Okay.
it became because that was Bill Nighy, and then they
Uh-huh.
ended up putting some markers on his face, and then he was basically in a green screen suit. And so,
Uh-huh.
but if you watch the show very closely, you can really see Bill Nighy's eyes and his facial movements all through that CG makeup that was
Cool.
done on top. I mean, it's a beautiful
Or
look.
would they do things where like the main actor would be CGI, but maybe people in the periphery would actually have the rubber masks on or something that, or would they just do CGI in everyone?
Well, for his people, his crew,
Uh-huh.
most of those were basically there were actors in green screen suits
Okay.
that would actually, do the action, and then that was used as reference plates and stuff like that to
Right.
do as CG characters or creations. Because
Yeah.
most of those were based on um, artwork and stuff like that, so they could get the look that they wanted.
That must have been so expensive because it looks so good.
Well, we
Yeah.
also shot that in Palmdale for a good deal of it. It was I think it might be the world's largest green screen set that we've ever constructed, that's ever been constructed, because it was a airplane hangar that they would build stuff out there in Palmdale, and we had
Uh,
two full-size ships. I mean, with the mass and everything. So it was, and they were on these special lifts. So all they had to do is to move the ships. They would turn on this airflow, and the whole ship would raise up. And literally, I was talking to one of the people that was moving them. I said, "Well, how much pressure does it take to move the ships?" They go, "Literally, you could use just your fingertips and push the whole ship. That is tons." They go, "But you have to be doing it very slowly, because if you push it too hard, it'll want to keep going and go right through the wall, because there's no way to slow it down. So you have to do it very slowly." But
is there
we had
someone
the
on the
ship,
other side that with their put their hand out to stop it?
yeah, if they got a little too much, pushing on that. But it was amazing. I mean, that whole sequence where we have the maelstrom, that's all done with actors swinging from one ship to the other ship. We had lights going on and off for lightning. We had rigging up for the rain coming down on them, and the basically the wind. I mean, it was an incredible
Yeah,
sequence that
what
we
a
shot
huge
there.
production.
In fact,
Yeah.
the director on that got in front of all of us and got on a mic and says, "This will be the last time you will see anything like this in Hollywood, where you have this much physical look to the show." Because I mean, like I said, this was full size ships on a
Yeah.
green screen set that was so large we had to shoot it in basically a large airplane hangar out there in Palmdale, and we shot
Yeah.
it for months.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see stuff like that.
Yeah, especially now they're going really overboard on the CGI. And the thing is like I've watched some some of the latest shows that still supposedly have these giant, huge budgets, but I'm like, well, this is obviously CGI, and it really isn't that convincing to me, you know.
Well, and
Um,
and if you've watched a lot of the Star Wars shows, I mean,
hmm
a lot of times they even have what basically is a kind of a wraparound projection system, that so they don't have to sometimes go on locations, that
Are you
just,
talking about The Mandalorian?
yeah, the Mandalorian,
Okay,
they'll
yeah,
they'll shoot on that down there at the stages, and shoot that so that it looks, I mean, it's beautiful, because
yeah,
they can create daytime, nighttime. They can create almost, if the camera's low, they can create so it looks like there's sky above them. I
right.
mean, it's amazing. But
Well, the advantage to that, rather than a green screen, is that, of course, the actors don't have to imagine what they're interacting with. They can actually see what they're interacting with.
correct.
So it helps them a lot.
Well, and the same
Yeah,
thing for makeup. I mean, when you have someone who's just wearing dots on their faces, and you have another actor who's supposed to react to them, and it's just dots, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard because you're not seeing the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Same thing like with Jurassic Park. You're reacting to a dinosaur that's not there. They'll be put in, you know, months later. So you as an actor have to just react like you're seeing this horrifying thing coming at you and you're screaming, right? But then you all have to make sure that you're all looking at the same spot because otherwise it looks like your eyes
No,
drifting all over the place.
no, no. You know.
That's right. That's how it's done. I mean,
Oh
so
boy.
again, physical makeup and physical effects are a real help to a lot of people because then if you're doing it in camera, you don't have to add it in later in post,
True.
and actors get to react to it. You can see it lit properly because now you have the lighting crew in there, and
Right.
let's face it, having a physical set that people can interact in has a great advantage over that of a CG set because again, you feel like you're in that moment as an
Right.
actor.
That was
I
one of
mean,
the great things about The Expanse. I don't know if you watched that show, is they put a lot of heart and soul into their sets up in Toronto, and so almost all of it was practical. I mean, occasionally they'll put a green window in or something like that to augment it a little bit,
right.
but mostly it's physical sets. And of course, the actors then they've got more stuff they can manipulate and tinker with and get in the
Well,
mood. You know.
well, that was always the thing that I found interesting is, in most shows, if it's a series, the crew is working overtime over this weekend to build a new set, to dress it, to construct it, to finish it and everything, so that when you come in on a Monday, they've been working overtime the entire weekend. And then you
Right.
get to see the set all pristine or worn or whatever the look is. I remember we had this beautiful set that was constructed over on stage 16 for when we have Da Vinci. Remember that episode with Kate Mulgrew and Da Vinci, and
Hmm.
she's supposed to be in his basically his workplace,
Yeah.
and the set was gorgeous. But the one thing I always found kind of weird is you never got to see it on camera because the directors would always go to these extreme close-ups, these talking heads, as I refer to them
Hmm.
as,
Yeah.
and other people do. They say the same thing, talking heads. And it's like you had all this expense putting in this set together, and you don't see it in its whole expansive look.
So there was never any wide shots, huh?
Very few,
Too
and
bad.
they were kind of controlled. To me, I always wanted to see a really high wide shot of this whole set because it was beautiful.
Right.
The
But of
amount
course,
of
the
work.
thing is at the time, you can't, wide shots don't work that good on TV. I mean, now they do because we have way better resolution. But back when you had like only 500 lines, oh, you do a
Well, and
big wide
also, I
shot
mean,
and everything
we went
fuzzes
from a
out.
little square to now you have widescreen.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Of course, we can look at on a phone that's only this big, but it's so sharp that you can still get all the detail.
Right.
So, I mean, that's
But,
why they would do tighter shots for TV, for that reason.
well, we had
Um,
that. We had the problem on Enterprise. We were
okay.
shooting it, and then it was originally being shot basically for standard television
Hmm.
cutoff points, and then it was discussed with the higher ups of, well, how can we, because widescreen TVs were really starting to come in. And so there was that whole debate. Should we go for something that's more widescreen?
Hmm.
And so they ended up doing some cut lines and everything else when we did the pilot, if I remember right. And then it was decided that we should actually shoot everything to be more expansive. And we had a changeover with all our on-set um, monitors to now be a widescreen as opposed to the standardized
Hmm.
screen that everyone was familiar with on their TV.
NTSD or
And
whatever it's called.
right.
Yeah.
And then the big dilemma came up. They go, okay, we're going to go from film, we're going to go to digital.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we were all, going, okay, so how's this going to affect what we're going to do? And we did a few tests and stuff like that, but a lot of it was flying by the seat of our pants, trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how it was gonna, what the resolution was gonna look like. And it
Mm-hmm.
also helped trying to have monitors on set that actually more closely resembled what the viewing audience would be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of shows
Yeah.
I'm on, you have widescreen monitors as opposed to little screens.
Of course,
So you,
the thing, well, you can't, you know this, but I mean, if you shoot something digital and then you're like, it looks too antiseptic, I just don't like it.
right,
This nowadays you can apply software effects to make it look more like film again. You can
right. And the problem
compensate it in
is,
post. Yeah.
initially with a lot of the digital, if you try to put in a lot of smoke, which is adds that atmospheric quality of breaking up everything
Hmm.
that real life has. If you look at something from a distance, it has a little bit of that diffusion.
Yeah.
But it starts creating problems with artifacts and little digital
Yeah.
things that start going kind of
You see
crazed
little
because of all
squares and
this
stuff
stuff.
like that. Yeah.
Right.
Some of
So
that you
and
can control. I mean, a lot of that crap is because of the compression from whatever company's piping it to your TV set.
sure.
Because they try to crunch it down as much as they can, and then by the time, like what used to bug me, I mean now everybody's used to it, but I remember you'd see something fade to black,
Hmm.
and you just start seeing a whole bunch of squares.
Right. Or this little striations of
Yeah, just
grays.
weird things. Yeah, and it wasn't in the original. It was just what happened when it got compressed when it was sent over the lines.
Well, and I also
Yeah.
found that, like for here, when I was working on Voyager, I was looking at the TV at home and seeing how it was, the resolution and how it looked. And then I went to New York to visit with my husband to visit his mom. And in New York, I was watching the same program, and it looked 100% better. So then when I got back to California and I was on set and I went up to Marvin Rush, who was our DP, and I said, Marvin, I go, why is it that our local television program of our program looks terrible? He goes, just exactly like what you were just mentioning, is the compression and all of this. And I said, yeah, I was in New York and it looked so much better. He says, yes, because they're upping the ampage so that the resolution looks better. He
Yeah.
goes, here they're not doing that. There they are. He says, and that's why you will, no matter where you are in the world or in the country, it will look a little different depending on how it's being presented by the local companies. They're, showing it.
Interesting.
I mean, so that was news to me. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's so many things.
I kept
Yeah.
looking at, wow, our makeups. We need to do something about our makeups. Then when I saw it in New York, where it was actually televised the way it was supposed to be, it looked fine.
Well, the audio industry has to deal with that. Way back um, when they would produce records, I mean, even like in the 50s and 60s, when you mix a record, it could sound great on all your great system that you have right there in the studio. Then you go home and listen to it on your terrible stereo system, and it sounds like crap. So what they finally
Right,
realized is they had to mix it so not so it sounds good on the best equipment. You have to mix it in a way so it sounds good on the crappy equipment.
right. For
So
the
I'm sure you
average,
had to do the
for the
same
average
thing.
person.
Yeah. So you'd sort of kind of find your run-of-the-mill TV set and make everything look good to that, you know, and then, you know what I mean, rather than make it look good on the very best TV set that anybody could ever get.
Well, and that was the same problem. I mean, with the original Star Trek as well as other shows of that time period. I mean, you look at them now, as you were pointing out earlier, they now have made the original show so much better looking because it's now in like 4K and digital and all that. But
Mm.
it comes at a cost because now things that look good before now don't look so hot.
Mostly the makeup, like there's times when you can see, like from when you see a shot from Spock from the back, you can see the seams of his ears against the back of his skull sometimes. You
Right.
can see that, which you would never see on a normal TV set, but now you do when you're looking at a DVD of it and stuff like that. you
Well, that
know.
was one of the reasons because of Leonard Nimoy's ears stood a little bit away from his head. They
Uh-huh.
actually put a piece of double-sided toupee tape back here, and so to press his ear against his head, so
Uh-huh.
to also hide things and also to make the ear not sticking out and looking kind of silly. So it gave it more of an elegant look
Right.
by having it against pressed against his head.
Interesting.
So I
So
mean
many
that was
things.
another problem. I mean, when I was researching the Star Trek book, I got permission from Mrs. Roddenberry to go through
Hmm.
the special collection at UCLA. And so I had them pull out all the book or all the boxes they had. There was 80 of them. And I
Okay.
went painstakingly through every one of those boxes and went through all the memos and read everything about the various aspects about makeup, hair, visual effects, costuming, everything.
Yeah.
And it gave me a real kind of eye opener of what they were trying to go through at the time because of all the limitations that they had.
So that brings up a new subject. So like if we're watching Star Trek the original series, like if you'll see Spock and his face is quite green, and then you if you look at it, you realize, oh, he also has lipstick and eyeshadow on, and Captain Kirk's got lipstick and eyeliner and all this stuff. um, that nowadays is dialed way back, right? Nowadays we try to get a
Right.
much more realistic look. And was that a gradual evolution, or was there some point where suddenly they're like, no, we're not going to do it like that anymore.
Well,
We're
I
gonna do
mean,
it this way.
the issue was again, color television was
Uh-huh.
very different from color film. So again, at that time, the first show that had color programming was for the show Bonanza.
Mm-hmm. I remember that
Bonanza, which was
show.
shot over at Paramount, was on shot on I think it was stage 18 and 17.
Okay.
And at that time, no one had any idea of how colors would represent themselves, especially flesh tones,
Mm-hmm.
on color television. So RCA, who put out the first color television and was the big promoter for Bonanza, they ended up getting Frank Westmore to come over, and he spent a great deal of time going through and trying to research colors and putting them on a performer and putting it in front of the camera and had them film it and then show what it would look like on color television to try to figure out the whole color spectrum of how to even shoot this. Every time you upgrade from one type of media to another, you
Mm-hmm.
have to do complete changes and figuring out how colors are going to represent themselves. And flesh tones, which are probably one of the more subtle of those,
Mm-hmm.
is and because if you're shooting a set and that's all you're seeing is the set is one thing, but as soon as you put a person in there and it doesn't look right, your eye immediately goes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
For
trying to figure
example,
out
look over here. You can see my skin is completely washed out because there's too much light coming in through this window.
right,
So
and
it
so you would
looks
have to balance
weird.
it, right.
Yeah.
And that was the
Yeah.
same issue that they had back in the day with the early color television, is trying to figure, okay, how are we gonna figure this out? And so shows like I said, Bonanza paved the way, but also then when you get into early shows like Star Trek, again, you're trying to compensate for inadequacies in the system, and you're not sure how far to go or to tweak it to make it
Hmm.
look the way you want it. And
Right.
every time you do it, it's kind of a learning experience.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you get a chance to do a test, a screen test.
Well, it's
Anymore, your screen test is the first day of shooting now. They don't
so
even let you do that.
they had the concept of color correction there already, though, right?
They had it to some degree, but again, it was again a new medium
Okay.
because again at that point you had early color television and stuff like that, which was black and white.
Uh,
It was done on kinescopes and stuff like that, and it was not the most subtle material because sometimes you would get these broad breakups of grays and blacks and stuff like that. And
right.
then, like I said, now imagine going from that to early color television. Same thing like with Technicolor.
Mm-hmm.
Technicolor is If you look at early movies and then you go to Technicolor, everything blooms immediately. So like
Yeah, they
with
really jazz it
Wizard of
up.
Oz, all those colors just really pop. So you
Right.
have to figure out how you're gonna, are you wanting to pop or are you wanting to play them up so they pop more? I mean, again, there's all that you have to kind of work out with the whatever the concept of the show is, what works and what doesn't.
Right. So okay. So now we suddenly hit something that I didn't quite click with me until now is that as a makeup artist, you have to actually understand the technology of the cameras quite a bit because you understand that it may look one way to your human eye in real life and a totally different way once it goes through the cameras and films and all this stuff. And
Right.
so you have to really know that,
Well,
or
the
at
other
least.
issue, well, the other issue is you need to know if you're shooting out in daylight,
Hmm.
daylight is blue light because of our atmosphere.
Hmm.
If you're working on a set, they may have to try to simulate daylight, or they may be doing something else that can shift the whole look of the makeup. So what we try to do is, as in most cases, is try to emulate whatever the lighting effect is going to be on the set in the makeup room when we're doing the makeup, so that it's not a you don't go outside. You work with warm lighting in the makeup room, and then you go outside, and all of a sudden everything shifts greatly. So you need to have it done so it's close to representing what kind of lighting you're going to be shooting it under. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, right
So
then, right
so
there.
you're
Did
not
you,
so you're
in
not
your,
surprised.
so okay, so as a makeup artist and through these makeup classes that you took, were some of the classes actually just art classes where you had to learn about lighting and shading and all that kind of stuff?
Well, my background was not only just as a makeup artist, I was also trained as an artist.
Oh, okay. So you
So
had that
I have
in
an
your
art
bag.
background. I have an art degree
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
because I was also doing a lot of theater initially, I knew a
Okay.
lot about gels and lighting of gels and how that shifts the makeups and all that. So I was already introduced to that at a very young age working in
Okay.
theater. But it's kind of the same idea. It's just people say, well, if it's theater makeup, it must be really heavy. Not necessarily, especially if you're doing like theater in the round where the audience is like right on top of the actors. So you're
Hmm.
not going to do the makeup to look theatrical unless that's the intention of the scene, is they're supposed to look like a theatrical makeup. So again, it's all depending on so many factors as far as tastes and what the director wants, what the period of the show is,
Right.
how it's being shot or how it's being viewed.
And also, there's this thing now. I mean, like for example, if you go watch CNN or Fox News or some other news channel and MSNBC, all the anchors still have quite a bit of makeup on them, right?
Some of
Uh,
them, yes. Just
um,
like soap
but like
operas.
if you watch a podcast like me, I have zero makeup on, and
Right.
right
I
now,
have
of
nothing
course,
on
it's all
too.
blown out. But
Right.
so now the audience is used to seeing a person with no makeup, and that's okay. Whereas back in the day, we got trained that whenever we saw something on TV, they had to have makeup because if we saw them with no makeup, it would just look wrong to us, right?
Right.
But
Well,
now things are changing. So now you notice makeup is much more natural looking and much more subtle, even for actors on shows.
part of the problem also is because of digital.
Uh-huh.
Digital creates a kind of a hyper realism. And sometimes if they go to close-ups, you see all these blotches and everything on a person's face that you not normally used to seeing, especially in film.
Hmm.
Film, it has a certain look to it that takes that hard edge down and creates a little bit more of a um, dreamy quality to the person's complexion.
Hmm.
Now, when you go to high def cameras and they get really close, it shows more detail than sometimes what you want it to show.
Right. But the thing is, it's easy to compensate for that. You can easily digitally blur it if you want, you know. I
Again, if you
actually
have
do that sometimes, especially when I have to take footage that's old archive footage, and I'm trying to match new footage with old. Lots of
right,
times I'll have to add a Gaussian blur to the
Right.
new footage. Otherwise, it just completely looks wrong. You know?
Yeah. I mean, back several years, I was asked to come or go over to Sony to help with some tests they were doing.
Okay.
They were working on an Ang Lee film, and Ang Lee was there for some of it, and he wanted to go to extreme high def. It had been used for the first Hobbit film, if you remember that,
Hmm.
and because they were shooting at like 100 frames per second.
Yeah, which in my opinion looks terrible.
So Ang
Yeah.
Lee was going to do the same thing on
Yeah.
this film. And it was one of those things that they said, well, we want a makeup artist over here. So I got called in to come in, and
Mhm.
I had a male and a female performers there, and I was doing makeups on them. And what we were doing is we were on a stage that had nothing but all these expensive camera systems, and every camera system had their own operators, and we had them from all over the world.
Okay.
So we had basically like millions and millions of dollars worth of camera equipment. And the screens that they had us to use to evaluate were the biggest screen that you could ever have.
Hmm.
And so I was doing these makeups on these performers, and then we'd bring them out, and then we'd have them doing all kinds of things, all kinds of lighting effects on them. We even took them outside to see how the lighting in the real world looked compared to that of theatrical lighting
Hmm.
and that type of stuff. And it was an eye-opening thing, because I'm right in front of it, and I mean it picks up literally everything because they're shooting at such a high rate of digital film, I guess you would call it, like
Resolution.
right,
Yeah.
resolution.
Well, there's two things. There's the resolution, there's the pixels on the screen, and then there's the frame rate. And then the reason why I said I think 100 frames per second looks terrible is because it kills all the motion blur, and so everything just looks to me looks fake. Like I
Well, it
want,
gives it it makes it too crisp.
yeah, it's too crisp. Like when you see something move across the screen, you want to see that blur. But if you got 100 frames per second, you won't see the blur. You'll
Right.
see this crisp hand moving quickly, and it just it doesn't look real. It looks fake to me.
Well, and I
Yeah.
and I found that trying to use kind of the standard techniques of makeup application and all that, I started each day. I was tinkering and trying different things, and I found some of the things that work the best is to use almost like muted tones and stuff like that, and put them on so almost slight that it
Hmm.
made the biggest difference on the person's face without looking like I did anything.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it was interesting because I found that I had to thin out bases to
Hmm.
where they were just like almost like a gel, to was just a hint of color on their face.
Hmm.
And correctors like under the eyes, where a lot of people will get kind of this blue gray cast right there.
Right. Yeah. I
I
bet.
found that using just the barest amount of a correction, and sometimes it was just a powder,
Hmm.
and I would just lightly put it on there, and I would look at the monitor, and it's like, wow, that made such a difference. Just
Hmm.
doing subtle little things. Because a lot of people would say, well, you can't do any makeup if you're doing digital because it'll look like that. It's
It'll
like,
look like
no,
makeup. Yeah.
right. You can still do it. You just have to you have to blend, 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 and you have to really choose your colors carefully for what the camera's picking up.
Right.
Certain cameras react to reds. So if you have to find out, okay, what does this camera system react to?
Right.
If they say,
Again,
well,
so
it's
you really need to
oranges,
know the
red,
camera and the
right.
technology behind it. Yeah. Interesting.
So I mean, it's understanding more beyond just what you do, is understanding what the end result's going to look like with that camera system.
So again, if you go to a big wig makeup school, will they teach you this stuff now?
Honestly, I don't know if they do, because again, you'd have to have a lot of camera equipment there to actually to display all of this and to show this. Some schools have some areas like Makeup Designery or MUD has a
Hmm.
camera room that's set up to do some of that. In fact, I was teaching a class over there for the contract service classes, and I was showing them how to do certain things. And I said, okay, so now let's test this. Let's go see what it looks like under digital lighting and under an actual setup like we would see on a set. And I brought them over to that room, and so they could actually see what worked and what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm teaching classes like at Cinema Makeup School or some of the other schools, I'll say, take your phone out and take a photo with your phone because it's digital.
Mm-hmm.
We used to say, well, you can only judge it by your eye. You can't judge it by your eye anymore because the digital camera sees things differently than the human eye does.
Right.
It perceives things differently that the human eye can't perceive or doesn't
Yeah,
perceive.
and it also adjusts. Like I got mad one day because I bought my mom, or not my mom. Oh my God, I bought my wife these beautiful purple roses,
Yes.
and I was like, oh, I'm going to share this on Facebook. So I took a picture and shared it, and the darn AI turned it into red because they were roses, so it changed them to red. They were no longer purple anymore.
Right, and that's the problem, and that's why I try to tell that to the students now. I said, we used to be able to say you can judge it only by your eye, or look in the mirror and see how it represents itself in the mirror. But the problem is that's no longer the case anymore. You have to really judge it by, if you're shooting digital, you have to judge it by a digital media, like
Yeah,
what's on some of the higher end cameras on your cell phone.
yeah.
I mean, I was visiting my parents um, back in Illinois at Christmas, and
Mm-hmm.
I went outside and no additional lighting, and it was just pitch black, and I was shooting things with my camera on my phone, and I have one of the latest iPhones, and it picked up every detail, even with almost no light at all.
Right. Well,
I
that
mean, it
brings up
was
another issue too, is you have to know, like if they're using older equipment that requires really bright lights, then of course you have to have makeup that isn't translucent, right?
correct.
But if you know it's
If you're
going to be
trying,
lit just more naturally, then your makeup's different, right?
right, and the problem is also, again, we used to have it when you were shooting, say, blood. Blood is red. It's
Hmm.
photographed differently depending on the type of film you were using. And if you were in a low light situation, sometimes bloods would look like just wet spots. They didn't look like blood. So you would have to have a very bright blood that would look almost fake to your eye. But under a very low light situation, you have to have basically what would refer to as low light blood, which was
Mm,
bright, garish looking, but would photograph looking like blood without looking like a wet spot on someone's skin or on their clothes. And
yeah.
the same problem though is if you put a dark blood on a dark skinned actor, you can't perceive it. So again, you have to adjust that blood so it reads correctly on the skin tone,
Hmm.
which people don't think of, or on fabric, because fabric will absorb the blood and take on a different kind of look depending on the fabric, type of fabric, the darkness of the fabric, density of the fabric, all of those things. It may bead up or it may just absorb in and just look like a wet spot, like the person just spilled some water on themselves.
Yeah.
So
See, this
there's
stuff is so fascinating. All these little details and gotchas and stuff. Like you kind of have to know a little bit about chemistry, a little bit about biology, a little bit about photography and all these things. Physics, I guess, because of the way that light bounces off stuff and gets affected by, all these different things that you wouldn't initially think would have anything to do with makeup.
no, and
But
that's the thing is, and there's also the psychology of working with an actor,
oh yeah, that brings
because
up another
now
question.
you're going to put a makeup on this actor, and some actors would be, especially if it's, I hate to say this, your viewing audience may go, oh, they'll roll their eyes, but I find that when I was working doing age makeup, especially if it's on a young lady or
Mhm.
a woman, they really detest it.
Don't do that
Men,
to me.
because they're going, oh my God, you're making me look like my grandmother, and they roll their eyes or they just get, oh, they start crying and they get upset and everything. And or you do this makeup on them and they go to their trailer and they come back and they're on set and the makeup, the director says, well, didn't you do an age makeup on him? Well, yeah. It's like, well, look at him. And they went in and completely
Took it
changed.
off.
So, I mean, there's
I was going
all
to
these
ask a
things
similar
too.
question. Do you run into actors who are just constantly making you redo it because they don't look beautiful enough?
Um, you may get
Men or
that.
women, I should say, not just
It
women, but
actually it
men
works for
too.
both. It works for both. Yeah. So there's no division line between that on
Yeah.
because some people want to always look their best.
Yeah. Will you
And
please make sure my eyebrows come out just so, and
oh
that
yeah.
I want to have my sideburns, they've got to just be, it needs to enhance my cheekbone. See that right there? I really want that to show in this scene. So make sure you get that.
Well, I had that on a show. In fact, I had that on Enterprise. Um, we had an episode where we meet um, Jolene's mom, Jolene Blaylock, who plays the
To
Vulcan on
Paul. Yeah.
DePaul on Enterprise.
Yep.
And so the actress comes in that's going to play her mom. And I'm not going to say her name because all you have to do is watch the show and you'll know who I'm talking about. And she goes over to the hair department to get her hair wrapped and comes over. And it's like 3 in the morning. And I'm the only one in the makeup room in that particular trailer because we have 2 trailers. We had one for hair, one for makeup. And
Okay.
she comes over and she sees me. She sits down. And I start putting the ears on. And she goes, okay, well, who's going to do the rest of my makeup? I'm kind of looking around. It's like, do you see anyone else here? I go, I am. She goes, you are? She goes, well, what are you going to do? I go, well, next thing I have to do is I have to put eyebrow covers over because the eyebrow on a Vulcan goes at this angle. And so I have to get rid of the outer part. And we have a little lace piece that go over top to create the whole look of the eyebrow.
Hmm.
She goes, okay, and then what are you going to do? I go, well, I'm going to have to base you out and I have to match to this. So this matches to that. And she goes, okay, and then what are you going to do? It was always that. Well, then what are
Yeah.
you going to do? What are you going to do? And I kept going through and I finally says, uh-huh. And she says, well, I just wanted to make sure you're going to do a good job of my makeup. And I said, why is that? She says, because I was on 6 feet under. And all they did was put me a little mascara on me, a little blush and lip. And then she goes, and I look like crap on camera. And I go, oh, no, that's not going to happen here. She goes, what do you mean? I go, I'm going to give you the Hollywood treatment. She goes, what do you mean? I go, I'm going to sink your cheeks in. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to correct under the eyes. I'm going to tighten up the whole jawline. I went through everything I was going to do. She goes, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
She
So
goes,
you
I
knew.
want to make sure I look good. And I
Okay.
go,
So
I said,
you
that's my
learned how to
intention.
handle. You know how to sell it too, right?
Oh yeah,
You know how
when
to say the right things to the right type of actors.
when I said all that, she's like, that's what I want to hear. Because she
Yeah.
goes, I looked like crap before and I want to look good for this. And I go, oh, I said, that's my intention too, because you have to look just as nice as to Paul. You're supposed
You're
to
like,
be her mom.
honey, you are so beautiful, and I'm gonna make it all come out. You are gonna look so good when I'm done with you. People are gonna cry when they see you. They're gonna just.
Well, what was funny was I was out there on set and I was touching up my actress. As like
Mhm.
I said, this is normal. And our DP was watching the monitor. And I come back and I stand behind him and he's, sitting in front of the monitor. And the director comes over and Marvin Rush turns around in his chair and says, wow, she looks really good. And I said, well, thanks. And I go, okay. And he turns around again and says, no, she looks really good. I go, I heard you the first time, Marvin. Thank you. And finally he turns around and says, no, what I meant to say is she looks really, really good because I've seen her without her makeup and what you've done on her is beautiful. He goes, I don't have to do anything. Your makeup does it all. He goes, she looks great. It gives her the confidence as the actress. And he goes, it's just a wonderful makeup, and it's a beauty makeup along with a character makeup.
Yeah.
And he's like, he says, it just photographs so nice. I'm like, well, thank you. I mean, Marvin Rush was not always the person to give out compliments, but in this case, and I'm like, well, did you see me?
So
You
you
had to
should have
see,
said,
come
just a
on.
sec, can I have you sign this piece of paper authorizing that
Right.
you just said that? So I
But I
can
mean,
frame it on my wall.
yeah, it was amazing. And it's like, it was, again, something that you're not used to hearing from someone who doesn't normally say stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
So, I
what was the
mean,
deal? Were you just having a good day or like, or what happened there?
what, that the makeup looked that good? No,
Yeah.
I did makeup like I normally did. I just, I'm just very fastidious about making sure that makeup looks really good. I mean, I remember when I was taking over our makeup on Voyager, when the camera operator came over and talked to me. He goes, um, "What are you doing that's different from this makeup?" I said, "Well, first off, I'm doing this makeup for someone who's not there right now because they're on maternity leave." And they're like, "Oh yeah." I go, "But what are you doing that's different?" I said, "Nothing. It's using the same materials and everything. It's just the way I'm applying it, I guess. I don't know." And he goes, normally we have to put filters on in front of the camera to soften everything. He says, I don't have to use a single filter. Your edges are so pristine on the ears. I don't even see them.
Oh,
Her
you did
makeup.
Tim Russ?
I did Tim Russ, but this was before Tim Russ.
Oh,
I was
okay.
doing I was doing Kess. So,
Hmm.
and I did her for a time being again because her main makeup artist was away on maternity leave,
Hmm.
and so I did her makeup, and he's like, wow, he says, it's just so super clean how you have that
Nice.
makeup on. And,
Hmm.
and with Tim, I mean, you've interviewed Tim, so,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
Tim, he
you
doesn't
watched
like,
it. Cool.
yeah, he doesn't like to
Yeah.
sit still too long. And so I had his whole makeup down so that I would do one ear,
Okay.
do something on that. I go to the other ear, do something like that. Come over here, do something on this ear, come back. And I was doing it back and forth and then doing stuff on his face. And by the time I was done in like half an hour to do his full makeup.
Wow.
But I never used a
Hmm.
hair dryer. I put everything on so super thin that everything would dry in the amount of time I had from going from one ear to the other ear, that
Hmm.
everything was going back and forth to the point that there was, I never had to use a hair dryer.
Wow. Okay. So didn't it take 2 hours to do Spock? 2 or 3 hours?
You mean for the original show?
Yeah, Leonard Nimoy.
No, they wouldn't have given him 2 hours to do that makeup because of the time and everything. I believe his makeup took probably about anywhere from an hour and 20 minutes to maybe an hour and a half.
Okay, but you cut that to a third of that.
Yeah, because
There's
of,
Tim
again,
Russ.
kind of working out all the logistics of trying to do this. Because again, if you have to dry things, that takes time. If you're putting glue on, you have to dry
Hmm.
something. I mean, so I had it down to where I could do the whole thing in half an hour.
Okay.
So
What do you do when after you put that on and like an actor says it itches? Do they just have to suffer through it?
no, the first thing you say to an actor if they start saying, I have an itch under here, and they want to do this, you go, no, just tap it. If you tap it, it diffuses the itch. So
Okay.
just tap wherever you're feeling that itch and just doing that and it goes away. Yeah.
Oh, smart. Okay.
I mean, I also did Phlox's makeup on Enterprise, and
I interviewed
you
him
know, that
too.
that
Mr.
was a
Billingsley.
Mr. Billingsley. I love Mr. Billingsley. We got along great. I
Yeah,
put
he
on
and
some
I got in
classical music,
a
and
bit
we
of
would just,
a skirmish having to do with politics halfway through.
oh yeah.
Yep, that's okay.
I
We still
love
love
him.
each other in the end.
He's such a great character actor. He really is.
Yep.
But yeah, working out the logistics of his makeup, and I would pre-paint as much as I could on my makeups. So I'd
Pre-paint,
have
what's that mean?
pre-painting the appliances so that they were almost all the color was on them. All I'd have to do is just work on the edge.
Oh, okay.
Um, I did the same thing we had a guest star on Voyager, and I didn't know it, but he was a very good friend of Mr. Shimmerman's.
Oh,
And
Armin
so
Shimmerman, yeah.
Armin came over and he came up to the upstairs makeup room where I was doing his friend. And his, he comes in and Armin says, well, how long is this makeup going to take on you? He goes, my makeup takes like 3 hours. And he's like, just going on how long it's going to take. And guy's in my chair, and he turns, he says, no, Brad has the whole makeup done in like an hour and 20 minutes. He goes, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, wait a minute. How's he doing that so quickly? He goes, he has everything pre-painted. So he gets it on, he just blends off what he needs to and does this. And, he was explaining it to him. And Armin looks at me. He goes, well, he used a word that I'm not going to repeat here.
I want you to do my makeup from now on.
Well, he did say something like that. He says, how? He goes, you had that makeup on that quickly? He goes, and are you doing everything like what would be done on me? I said, yeah. I go, I just pre-paint everything. I have the whole makeup worked out like a puzzle. So I get everything worked out, and I can do it as fast as I can. And if the actor's not on a cell phone and does what I tell him to do, just, keep your eyes closed and sit back and just kind of relax. I said, I will go as fast as I can do to get this makeup on without any more than you have to be in the chair. And actors who really listen to me and let me do what I need to do, like I said, I can go pretty fast. But when they have to stop and they have to go out and have a smoke break, or have to be on their phone and they have their head buried down here where I can't do what I'm trying to do, or they, keep open their eyes. I was doing a makeup on Justin Bieber for a big commercial for the Super Bowl one year. And I told him, keep your eyes closed. It was me and another makeup artist that were working on him. And I said, now keep your eyes closed when I'm working around your eyes. And I'll tell you when you can open them. So he closes his eyes, and I start working around his eyes with some glue because I'm going to put on some appliances on him. And he just pops his eyes open. I said, no, close your eyes. So he closes his eyes. Then he pops them open again. I said, no. If I get glue in your eye because you keep doing this, it's not going to be good. And he never listened to me. It was a real pain. It really was.
Well, he wasn't spanked enough as a kid, obviously.
Well, something. I'm not even going to go there as far as what she done, but yeah. Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah,
It was crazy. And he was he had something about his hair, and I had to put a wig cap on him. And here I am, I'm having to manipulate his hair and everything, and put a wig cap on him, and I have to flatten his hair down and everything like you would for a wig, because I've done that many times in theater. And I'm just waiting for him to start complaining to me about me touching his hair. I was like, well, I can't do it if I don't touch your hair. I can't do it through my mind, And it was a pain in the ass. It really was. I mean, and then after that, I got a call, and they said, hey, can you come over and do Justin Bieber's makeup for the Tonight Show? I go, no.
No.
Once was enough.
Let me recommend one of my colleagues, and then send it to the way people.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay, so we have to balance out the universe. So we have to tell a story about your very favorite actor who you just love doing their makeup because they're just such a beautiful human being, and there's just this wonderful bonding that happens between the two of you when you put on their makeup.
Well, I have several actors that actually are pretty good about that. John Billingsley, for one.
Okay.
We got along great. I mean, he'd be in there at 3 in the morning. I would be there. I would turn on some classic, music for him, and he would just kind of run his lines in his head while I were doing that. Had a great experience with him. F. Murray Abraham for Insurrection. It was me and another makeup artist, Dean Jones, that did his makeup, and we put on. And this was the thing that what you find out what your actor likes. Okay. And so we were talking to Murray about this, and I go, what do you like? He goes, I like to have some music on. I said, okay, what kind? He goes, believe it or not, I like Elvis Presley. I go,
ain't nothing wrong with that.
Fine. We'll put on Elvis Presley for you. He goes,
love
I'm a Texas
me tender, boy. Love me true. Never let me go.
But he says, he goes, I'm a Texan boy. He goes, he wouldn't know it from my name. He says, everyone thinks I'm Jewish because of my last name and
All
all
my exes are in Texas.
that. But we got along great. We were able, the
Yep.
two of us, putting his makeup on, and it was an elaborate makeup too. We were able to put that whole makeup on in like an hour and 10 minutes.
Now, I'm assuming Worf would be listening to Klingon opera, right?
Oh, well, yeah, you'd have to be singing Klingon opera. The Klingons are known for their opera.
Yeah.
Let's see who else. Recently, I was working on a show called Danger Force.
Okay.
That's on the Nickelodeon channel,
Okay.
and I was doing the lead character on that, who plays Captain Man,
Okay.
and we got along great too, the two of us. I worked on some various actresses, and we just get along great too. So I mean, it's not just a male thing. It's sometimes you just you click with your actor.
Right. Your
We had,
auras are just, the energies just go like this.
yeah, and
Ah,
I had one actress I was doing her makeup on, and this was for she was supposed to be a Playboy bunny
okay.
for a movie,
So you had
and
to glue everything on her?
oh yeah, just 3 years, 3 years,
Oh, that's it. How
and
boring.
yeah. Anyway, so I'm doing her beauty makeup, and she's watching me, and she says, "Can I ask you a question?" I go, "Yeah, what is it?" She goes, "I'm watching you," because she's looking in the mirror as I'm doing the makeup, and she goes, you move, you don't move like a makeup artist as far as the way you're putting it on. You move like you're almost like you're a painter. You're painting my face."
Uh-huh.
She goes, "Do you have an art background?" I said, "Yeah, I am a painter. I do portraits and stuff." She goes, "I could tell the way." She goes, "Even when my eyes were closed, I could feel the sensation, like your hand is just going on, working on my face like I'm a painting." And she's like, "It's the most amazing thing to watch you do this." And I've had
Hmm.
many actors say that to me. They go, "Are you have an art background? Because it feels like I'm being done like a canvas."
Yeah,
I
I'm a
go, "Yeah,
human canvas.
yeah."
Hmm.
So it's interesting how they perceive that, even with their eyes closed. They go, "I can just see what you're doing, all these little nuances that you're doing." They go, "It makes a huge difference, but I feel like I'm a painting."
Mm-hmm. But I was getting into that. So but there must be some kind of special bonding that happens between the actor and the makeup person. Like is there there's certain things that you know about each other that nobody else would know, or some things you just somehow understand about each other just because of that interaction. Would you say that
It
is
it
true?
it works. It works that way. When I did A Woman Named Jackie, me and Roma Downey really clicked. And I mean, we just really enjoyed working together. And we had one scene where this was after the assassination of Jack Kennedy, because she's
Mm-hmm.
playing, you know, Jackie, and she's doing a scene, and she's getting so overwrought with the emotion of the scene that it was necessary, that literally her whole makeup was destroyed.
Hmm.
And the director comes over to me and takes me aside and says, he goes, "Brad," he goes, "that was a magnificent scene, but we need to redo her whole makeup to make her look good. Can you do it here instead of taking her back to the trailer?" I said, "Yeah, I can work her back to where she needs to be." He goes, "That's what I want to hear." He goes, "Go over there in the corner." He says, "I will keep everyone else busy doing something
Tell
else,
some
so nobody
jokes or
will be the
something.
wiser of what's going on, and redo her whole makeup." And he goes, "And we're going to shoot this again." And I even had it to where when I was working with Roma, I said, "I'll come up and touch you up, but if you're in a real precarious emotional state at that time and you don't want me to touch you, all you have to do is just give me a nod and I'll just back away." I said, "Unless I see something that's so problematic," I said, I won't bother you. I'll just do what I need to do and get out of your way. And that's how we had our little code between us.
Hmm.
So that I would just go in there when it was really necessary. And if it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't get in her way because, she's in this emotional state as the character for that scene and
Okay, so
act.
she was kind of a method actor.
Yeah. I mean, and
Okay.
so, and some actors are that way and,
Hmm.
I appreciate it and that's how they are. But I don't necessarily go in to touch up actors just to touch them up unless I
Hmm.
see stuff. If I see something, I'll go in there. And most of the time, I don't even say anything. I just go in there and touch up and I just leave.
Do you ever
And I
find
remember,
yourself in a situation where you're sort of like a bartender, where suddenly you're working on an actor and suddenly they just spill all their guts and tell you a bunch of personal stuff that, and you're like,
oh,
you're
yeah.
thinking,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not a therapist, but I guess right now I have to be one.
And that happens too, as well, because again, we're all human.
Yeah, okay.
We have good days and bad days, and
So what's
they
your
go home.
strategy? Do you just listen or do you try to engage them?
It depends on the person. You have to feel the actor out. Some actors like to just get things off their chests, and you're
Hmm.
just using you as a sounding board just to have someone listen to. And some people want a little back and forth.
Hmm.
And so you just have to play it out the way the actor is. Some actors, like for instance, F. Murray Abraham, when we would start his makeup, we'd have little pleasantries and we'd talk about, the weather and how things are going and all that. And
Hmm.
then he would settle into his seat and he would run these lines in his head. And so neither me or Dean Jones would talk. We just had the music going on that he liked, the Elvis. And we got it to a point, it was like a ballet. I would do one thing on one side, he would do something on the other side, and we didn't even talk. We could just look at each other and know what the next thing was without
Hmm.
having to say anything. And I had to airbrush him and spatter his makeup and everything. And to keep the noise level down, I didn't even use a compressor. I used a tank of air. And I would
Hmm.
just had a handle and I would just pick it up and go from one side to the other, just doing what I needed to do. And then we just give him a little tap on the shoulder saying, okay, you're ready for set if you want to get up and do something. And he's like, thanks, boys. And he referred to us as his boys. And that was what we worked up with Murray. And he liked it because he said, I've worked with makeup artists who just talk and talk and talk. And he says, and they forget that this is my time to run lines in my head for the day. I said, oh, I understand that completely. And he says, okay, great. And he loved us because we kept everything, the noise down to a minimum. And he could go out and just have his day already locked into his head and ready for whatever what was going to be shot that day. So
Yeah,
every actor's different. You just have to
interesting.
feel out each actor to see what they like or what they don't like.
All the stuff that you just sort of learn by doing, right?
You learn from doing and also being around people. And I was very nervous the first time I was introduced to Murray because we were on location. We were doing some of the Baku characters, and I was asked to come in and help figure out his makeup. And so Michael asked me to do that. And I'm in the trailer by myself getting things set up. And he comes in and he has overhauls on. And the first thing he does is he goes, hi, Murray Abraham. And I go, oh, hi, Brad Luck. And he immediately tried to be very, nonchalant and very, you know, uh, pleasant about the whole thing. And I was the same way back. And it just really helped to break the ice because I was like, oh, F. Murray Abraham, he was Amadeus, the big makeup that Dick Smith did on him. Then he got the Academy Award for his performance, as well as Dick Smith getting the Academy Award for the makeup. I'm like, oh, you're kind of like, very nervous. And sometimes I get very nervous before I meet certain actors, and some actors, know how to kind of disarm you and make you, you know, get you so you're not going to be so nervous around them working with them. And
Yeah.
I mean, so Murray was that way, just say, hey, just call me Murray. Don't call me F. He goes, F stands for Francis. He goes, I don't go by Francis. And so he goes, just call me Murray. And, it's like, okay. And it helped a lot. It really did.
That's cool. Wow.
So I work with
Well,
all kinds of actors, so you just have to find what works best for them.
yeah.
Like Cooper Barnes, who was playing Captain Man for on Danger Force,
Hmm.
and also was in Henry Danger. We got along very well when I was asked to, take over his makeup, and he was up for anything. I'd say, okay, all right, so I'm gonna do this to you. And he goes, oh, no, 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 I want it even more. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I had an actor like that on Voyager, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Um, he was in the A Team, and I had to do an age makeup on him, and so I did this age makeup on him, and he was really into it because he was a theater actor, and he really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And I said, okay. He goes, what are you gonna do now? I go, I'm gonna send you down to the hair department, and they're gonna do your hair, gray your hair, and all that. And he goes, oh, no, 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 don't. Why don't you just do it? I go, I can't do it because we have a hair team that's supposed to do all
Yeah,
that.
we
He goes,
got
oh,
union rules, you know.
right, right. And he goes, no, 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 they're gonna screw it up. They're gonna screw it up. Your beautiful makeup is gonna be all screwed up. I'm like, well, I have to do it. So he comes back up. He goes, look it, they screwed it up. Tomorrow, I want you to do it. So I went down to the hair people and said, can I do his hair? He wants me to do his hair to age it, to make it look gray because he had to be in an age makeup. And they're like, I said, and you guys can take a look at it afterwards to see if you need to fix anything, but he would really prefer me to do it. He's like, okay, well, since the actor is preferring you to do it. So, sometimes actors put you in ticklish situations where you have to kind of maneuver between crafts. Yeah, so that was one of those.
Oh, that's fun. That's cool. Well, okay, we could go on forever and ever, but we probably should wrap it up. Ah,
Hopefully, this has
so,
been going to be interesting for everyone to watch and
oh
listen to all.
yeah. So now I assume that this is a job that you love, and this is like, do you ever plan to retire, or do you want to just keep doing makeup
Oh,
till your
no, no,
last
no,
breath?
no, no. I'm not going to be the last man standing wanting to do makeup at 80 years old on a set. No, I'm planning on retiring next year. I'm
Oh,
going to be I'm going to be 65 then. So when I started this industry, if you're looking at that picture of me when I'm working on the Borg there, I had kind of blondish brown hair. And now look at me. I mean, it's all white.
I'm
I
all
mean,
white too, except that I color my hair.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I've been stopped many times going, hey, do
I
you
just
color your
use
hair to
this
look like that?
stuff.
Oh,
Ever
yeah.
seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Control GX for man. I'm like a spring chicken, full of
Oh, yeah.
energy, raring to go.
All right. So anyway, no, I don't plan on. I do a lot of teaching though. I mean,
Oh, okay. So you'll probably keep doing that.
yeah, and I'm also doing some writing now too.
Oh,
So
cool.
so I've written a number of scripts. I have one that's being looked at
Oh,
by a production company right now. It's for a
oh,
series.
screenwriting.
Hmm.
Oh, what kind of stuff?
Um, I wrote the one that's being looked at right now is it's a family friendly episodic show about two friends. One that's a human, one that's an alien in disguise.
Wait a sec. It could be called
It's called
The
Franken
Odd
Beans.
Couple from Mars.
It's called Franken Beans.
Franken Beans.
Yeah.
You know what's
Uh,
crazy?
what's that?
Me and a buddy of mine, we were roommates at Star Trek Las Vegas last summer, and we were pretty crazy roommates. We decided, we should film this and make a show. So at first we were going to call it Bert and Ernie, and but then we thought, um, that's probably too close to Sesame Street. Even though I was going to be Ernie and he was going to be Bert, and we were going to be a gay couple. He actually is gay. I'm straight, supposedly. But we were going to be a gay couple. But we decided instead of calling it Bert and Ernie, We were going to call it Spurtin Ernie. He was going to be Spurtin and I was going to be Ernie. And the show was was going to be that we were always going to be in bed. We would be in bed about to go to sleep, and we were just doing pillow talk, and I would be doing stuff like, Spurtin, do you really love me? And he'd be like, Ernie, of course I do, you know. And we would just freestyle it, you know. We'd have a
Right,
very general idea of what we were going to do, but mostly it would just be improv. But,
right, right. Just ad
but
lib it all.
yeah, because we were doing shit like that like the entire weekend when we were roommates. So we're like, all we got to do is this and turn the camera on, and we got a show.
And did you film it?
No, not yet. We still want to. The problem
Okay,
is he
well,
lives in Detroit and I live in Seattle, and I was going to try to do it over Zoom and I'll use green screens and everything.
yeah,
And
you could try that, or
but
have him come out. You're out here in California.
Seattle.
You're in
So
Seattle.
I'm
Okay.
just a hop, skip, and a jump away from you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
So yeah, so that one is a sci-fi based concept,
cool.
and it's like I said, it's a family friendly show, so anyone in the family can watch it, and it has some comedy and some drama to it, so it's a mixture of both.
Nice.
And during the pandemic, I wrote another uh, script. It's called a Package of Dreams, and it's
Okay.
about a young boy who wants to grow up to be a horror host.
Okay.
And when his basically his um, hero dies, Uncle
Uh-huh.
Icky, he's left basically to his own devices. His mother passes, and his father wants him to have a regular job, and so he ends up getting a regular job working for this delivery service for packages and parcels and stuff.
Okay.
And he's hating life, and he's been doing this for like a couple months, and it's coming up to the anniversary of when Uncle Icky died, and all of a sudden everything starts changing on him. So
Hmm.
he's in his 20s, and he's asked to deliver a package that's supposed to be going to basically is like to a well-known mortuary or cemetery kind of thing. And he shows up at this very elaborate um, um, building, and this is it's where they inter all the bodies and stuff. And he's told he has to deliver this package to alcove 4B in this hall, and it
Tim
has to be
Curry
signed
doesn't
by
show up right.
no. It'd be good if it was him. And so he ends up delivering this package, and it's to a corpse, and the
Ooh.
corpse opens up the box and starting doing something inside the box, and the next thing you know, he comes up and he has a wax nose on, he has a wig on, he has makeup on, and he's like, the kid's staying there. He's just horrified by all of this and not sure what's going on. And next thing you know, the guy is gone, and the TV goes on in the room, and it's playing a program. And the next thing he knows, he's watching what used to be the old show that he used to watch as a kid, and now realizes. And on the screen, the character turns around, and now it's Uncle Icky. So this has all been Uncle Icky. So the corpse was Uncle Icky. This character he sees all made up was Uncle Icky. Now on the TV, it's Uncle Icky. And he
Ooh.
says, and he goes, "What do you think, Andrew? Isn't this what you really, really want to be as part of this?" And he's like, "Oh my God, it's Uncle Icky back from the grave, basically." Next thing you know, he gets pulled into a coffin and pulled down into the underworld to see Uncle Icky in his program and to
So
become a
this is
part.
really a Twilight Zone type of a thing.
It's a Twilight Zone show, yes, and it's
Wow.
it's written for animation. So I
Mm.
mean, it's really out there. So far, it's gotten over 140 awards worldwide.
Wow. Just
I'm
as a
very
script?
just as a script. Yeah, it's just a script.
Wow.
I'm trying to find someone who would be as an agent that could read it to actually do something with it, because it's gotten so much. Everyone that's read it has really loved it.
Hmm. Have you thought of making an audiobook out of it?
I don't know how you do that out of a script. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's basically a radio show if you want to add voice actors and um, sound effects and background music and stuff. I mean,
Yeah, like I said,
most audiobooks just have like one actor and they can do all the voices, but you can
right.
do it basically as a radio show is what it really is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I sent it to a friend of mine who does stuff like that. He does voices for like audiobooks.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things he said, he goes, this is a really sweet concept of a story. He says, and it feels like old Hollywood. He says it
Uh-huh.
really does with the way you've written it. But anyway, that I have that going on, so I
Cool.
spend my time doing writing as well.
Fun. And you have all
Yeah.
that experience in the industry because you've been watching how everything's done all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
Interesting.
interested in reading it, I can send it to you. Just send me your email address and I'll send it
Is
to
it
you.
publicly available? Like, can people download it off Amazon or something, or
No,
is it
no. I
okay?
would send you the script and you can read it.
Okay, yeah, send it to me. I'll give you my well, my email.
Well, you have mine, so you can just
Well, I don't
email it to
actually.
me.
Dan has it.
Oh,
Dan,
well,
Dan's the mediator here. All right. Very good. All right, let's
yes.
wrap it up.
All
Do you
right.
have I looked at when I Googled you, a couple things came up like your IMDb and then this other page. My iPad went to sleep, but are there any links that you want to share, like any social media links or anything like that, or things that you want people to be able to click on?
I honestly,
Okay.
I don't have, I mean, I have, I'm on Facebook, so people can see stuff on there if they want to
Okay,
look
we
at
can put
stuff.
your Facebook down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
They Facebook, I have images and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you have Instagram?
No. Oh,
Okay.
well, I
You
am on
might.
Instagram. I am on Instagram because of the scripts and everything.
Oh, okay. We can put
Because
that there. Are you
yeah,
on Twitter? Are we able to tweet at you? Okay,
I don't
no,
have
no
Twitter.
Twitter.
No
No
Twitter.
tweeter.
No
You
tweeter.
don't got Twitter.
No.
Okay. Um, and that's it, I guess. And then what I always do on my show is I do the live long and prosper. Even my
Oh yeah.
non-Star Trek guests know how to do this. Everybody knows
Oh
how to do
yeah.
it. Live long and prosper, sir.
Same to you as well. And thank you very
This
much.
was a great joy.
Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta